gunfire, or what had assumed to be gunfire, had echoed across the city, continuing for almost a week. Raffles had commissioned reports from all East India Trading Company outposts and British regiments until the truth had been uncovered. Sumbawa, a large island to the east, had been devastated by a volcanic eruption. The exact details were initially unclear. It had been an enormous event, but Raffles, as governor of Java, wanted more information. He had asked all residents of the districts under his authority to compile a statement providing any further information. The replies were harrowing and unbelievable. Sumbawa was lost. Every man, woman and child, beast and plant had been destroyed, buried by ash or swallowed by great grey boiling clouds that swept across the land so fast that escape was impossible. A Portuguese trading ship, barely escaping the falling ash, had reported the top third of the mountain was gone, obliterated. Rivers of molten rock had swept down, burning the land all the way to the ocean. Blizzards of ash had fallen across East Java and the islands of Bali and Lombok, even as far away as Borneo and Sulawesi. The seas had risen across the Dutch East Indies, sweeping ships onto the land and destroying entire villages. Many thousands were dead, without a doubt. Raffles looked down toward the Siliwan River that carved Batavia in two. Most days he could watch the Javanese children playing in the river and the women washing clothing and fetching water for cooking. But now the river seemed abandoned. He left the balcony and settled behind his desk. His book, half finished, lay open. He knew that if he did not chronicle this astonishing and horrifying event, few would. Raffles took up his quill, dipped it delicately in the inkwell, and pressed it to paper. They met in the Globe Inn on a chilly May evening, over 50 residents of Littleport, hungry and desperate. They discussed the rising prices of grain and the stagnation of wages. This went on for several hours. The drinks flowed and the talk became heated. Eventually, William Bemis, the old shoemaker, left the inn to find Burgess, Littleport's lighterman, and borrow his horn. He then stood outside the Globe on the slow, slick cobbles and sounded the call. Half of Littleport's residents left their homes and joined Bemis and his mob outside the Globe. The riot then began. They threw stones through shop windows and invaded the homes of nearby residents. The vicar of St. George's, John Vashel, attempted to quell the riot before it got completely out of hand. He read out the Riot Act, but was shouted down by young Thomas South, who reminded the crowd of the vicar's previous tenure as magistrate had been one of harsh discipline for even minor infractions of the law. He was sent away with threats of violence. Eventually, the name Henry Martin became too loud to ignore. A local landowner and farmer they had now decided was to blame, whose poor wages were the cause. They invaded the house he shared with his wife, though he was not there. The vicar was next. They approached his home at the rectory just as night was falling. He threatened to shoot any who entered, but the mob rushed him. No harm came to the man, though his possessions were taken and furniture destroyed. Vashel and his family fled on foot for Ely, the closest town. They finally caught up with Henry Martin when he returned to Littleport later in the evening. They stopped Martin's post-chase as it was entering the village along the Downham Road. They took all of his money, amounting to 14 shillings. They then allowed Martin on his way. The rioters then also made for Ely. Aaron Chabelle, with a dozen other rioters, had stolen horses, carriages, and they were now armed with guns and pitchforks. They settled at dawn the next day in the marketplace, having already been promised that their needs would be satisfied by the Reverend William Metcalfe out on the road. They were given beer and offered at least 2 shillings a day in labourer wages. The crowd cheered, and finally most dispersed. It was not to last. 18 men of the 1st Royal Dragoons were dispatched to Ely. The remaining rioters attempted to make a foolhardy stand at a local tavern, and even shot one of the troopers in the arm. They quickly surrendered, however, after Littleport resident Thomas Sidnell was shot in the back of the head after attempting to escape. 5 men were executed, including William Bemis and Thomas South, hung by the neck until death. They stood in the freezing rain and prayed with the crowd before walking up the slippery wooden steps to the gallows. Others were sentenced to hard labour at a penal colony or up to a year in prison. Was it worth it? Asked the jailer aboard the Sir William Bensley. What's that? Aaron Chabelle asked. The manacles around his wrists had already rubbed him raw. He could not imagine why they were necessary at all. Where was he going to escape to? All the way out at sea. I heard what you lads did, the jailer sniffed. Was it worth it? Aaron wanted to cry. No, it was not. The jailer laughed, and Aaron's stomach turned in grief and revulsion. Cheer up, friend. It's not snowing in Van Diemen's land, I bet.
Thank you, Tom.